This is the Call for Backup Precon from March of the Machines, and our commander is going to be Bright Palm Soul Awakener. For 1 red, green, and white, we have a 4/3 Fox Shaman with backup 1. When this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. If that's another creature, it gains the following ability until end of turn. Whenever this creature attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature. That creature can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. So this is the commander we're going to run with, and let's talk about the potential upgrades for this deck. Now hear me out, we have Beast Whisperer. I want to add this one because we have 39 creatures in this deck. You heard me right, 39. With this as a potential upgrade, this is really sweet card draw for the deck because whenever we cast a creature spell, we're going to be drawing a card. Next is Dusk Shell Crawler. When it enters the battlefield, it can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, which is fine, but the more important part is that each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it now has trample. And since our commander is promoting that, I felt this would be a great card to help us get damage through to our opponents. Evolution Sage. Every time a land enters our battlefield, we get to proliferate, which means any type of counters, whether they're on our battlefield, on a player, or on an opponent's battlefield, we get to add another counter of that kind already there. And since we're a +1/+1 counter deck, I felt this would be a great thing for an upgrade. Next is Gyre Sage. For every +1/+1 counter on Gyre Sage, we can tap that for that much green mana. So if we're really needing some ramp, this could be the way to go. Halana and Elena Partners. This is a 2/3 with first strike and reach, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is this creature's power. That creature gains haste until end of turn. This can really start helping us get those +1/+1 counters on our creatures, and we could focus putting counters on this first to make things even bigger over time. Harmonic Prodigy. Anytime you have a creature that's going to have a lot of triggers, and it happens to be a shaman or happens to be a wizard, definitely put this in there because our commander happens to be a shaman and it has a triggered ability. So let's read Harmonic Prodigy. It's a 1/3 with prowess, but if an ability of a shaman or a wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So that means we get to double their +1/+1 counters twice, which can be very powerful. Herd Baloth. This is kind of a budget jank card, and I say that because this is a 4/4, and it says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Herd Baloth, you create a 4/4 green beast creature token. So we could end up putting 10 counters on this thing, but we're only going to get 1 creature token. So if we can take advantage of putting counters on multiple times and not multiple counters at once, this would be a great card. But again, this is just a budget option for an upgrade. It's still a cool card to me. Kodama of the West Tree. Modified creatures you control have trample, which is great because if it has a +1/+1 counter, it's now modified. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. So we can ramp extremely easy with this one, and our creatures are getting trample. I really like this one. Lizelle, Vlakith's Champion. If one or more counters would be put on a creature or a planeswalker you control, or on yourself, put that many +1 of those counters on that permanent or player instead. So we are really pushing those +1/+1 counters. Let's just grab an extra one with this creature right here. Loyal Guardian. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, which hopefully we will, we get a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control, which is going to be really sweet and help us build up over time, which is what this deck is looking to do. Rishkar, Pima Renegade. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Each creature you control with a counter on it has tap, add green mana. So now all of our creatures with a +1/+1 counter on them are now Llanowar Elves, in addition to what they already are doing. Overwhelming Stampede. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control, and that's very easy for us to do with our commander. We can get out of hand very easily with this card right here. Shamanic Revelation. With the 39 creatures we have in this deck, let's just draw a card for each creature we control at that time, and if they happen to be over 4 power, we gain 4 life for each of those creatures. Cathar's Crusade. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We get to build up very quickly with this one. Hardened Scales, similar to Lizelle, but for only 1 green mana. If one or more +1/+1 counters be placed on a creature you control, that many +1 +1/+1 counter are placed on it instead. Invigorating Hot Spring. When it enters the battlefield, we get to put 4 +1/+1 counters on this enchantment. Modified creatures you control now have haste, and we can remove a +1/+1 counter from this enchantment to put a 1/1 counter on a creature we control, but we can only activate this as a sorcery and only once each turn. I really like this one because it's just giving a broad thing of, hey, now your creatures that have +1/+1 counters have haste, and if we have that with something that gives them trample, we are looking really sweet. So those are the potential upgrades for this Precon. If you'd like any of these cards, they'll be in the link in the description down below. If I missed any sweet cards, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.